Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's FileMaker webinar. My name is Mike Crook. I'm the marketing manager here for FileMaker in the UK. I have with me Kieran Saunders, our FileMaker product specialist.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So today, Kieran will be getting started in just a moment on a webinar all about the FileMaker training series and all about user interface. This is the, I think, the fifth in a series of six webinars around the FileMaker training series. Before he does that, just like to say, if you have any questions during the course of the session, feel free to ask them using the questions panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll do our best to address as many of those as we can towards the end. That's all you'll hear from me until that section. So without any further ado, I shall hand over to Kieran. Kieran.
Thanks, Mike, and hi, everyone. Okay, so the agenda for today is we're going to be looking at layouts and layout tools, looking at some of the objects that you can put on there, how you format those objects and change their look and feel, and then coming back and doing a bit of a presentation over sort of user interface best practice and how that looks. Okay. So let's get straight in and have a look at layouts. So let's just show you a few files. I'll show this one file here, Gallery Master, just to show you some sort of really nice design. So this is a solution, obviously, for a gallery. So we've got artwork and a little alert there at the top, customers and the artists. So we can go in and have a look at the customers. This is a list view here where we can view all of our customers in a list, go and view more details around them, see what artwork they've purchased and go and look at that in more detail. We've got a lovely little popover at the top here that has some navigation buttons in there, so we can directly go to, say, the artwork list view, so we can have a look at all of the lovely pieces of art in the gallery. And some nice sort of controls with drop downs and further pop-ups and some buttons that allow you to work through the process of a customer buying this artwork. So it's a really nice design here. So I'll just sort of show you that first, and then we'll go back to just starting straight off with a couple of spreadsheets and see how you build up to something that looks not like this, but how you use some of the design tools in FileMaker. Okay, so I've got some assets here that I can use. I've got some PDFs, some images, logos, and some spreadsheets. So I'll just bring in the spreadsheets quickly and start building up this file. So we'll drop the spreadsheets on, select field name at the option so that it builds up our labels for the data. Give it a name and save it onto the desktop. So that's created two standard layouts for us, but before I go too much further, I'm going to bring in the other bit of data from the other spreadsheet. That was the customer's works order, so let's bring that one in as well. And I'm going to bring that into a new table, and again, allow FileMaker to build up those labels for those bits of data for me. So bringing that in, I've got 14,000 works orders. So if we just quickly go to File Manage Database and have a look at these, what this looks like. So we've got two tables now. I'll just rename that to customers. So we've got customers and their works orders with all their fields and data that came along with that. And I'm just going to relate that up quickly. There is I think even the next webinar is more in depth on relationships, but this is a sort of quick preview, if you like. So we're relating those two bits of data now, so we can now start working with it. So what I'm going to do is go and edit this layout and create a new layout based on the customers. I'm just going to call it customers details, let's say. I'll design it for a computer, and I'm going to have a form view. I'll come back and create a list view later. So, okay, great. So I've got my new form. Just let me populate it with a few things like the logo. Just bring that out of the way. Bring the logo up to the top here, and put a little logo at the top, a little logo and a little bit of details of what this layout is. So that's great. So let's bring in some fields. So one of the ways of bringing in fields is using this date picker tool. So I could bring in maybe customers, the customer details, the manager, and the email, phone number, and a few address details, and I can bring them over into the layout. You can see I can select them, move them around when they're all selected, select maybe a few, maybe the address details. I could drop down a bit. Over here, can you see these design tools that are coming up to help me to make sure that the fields are all on the same side and they're all lined up nicely. When you're bringing in fields, just as a top tip, one of the options down the bottom here, these drag options are absolutely brilliant. You could bring in, maybe if I just select these three, I could put them next to each other, not on top of each other. The label disappeared, the label at the top left, or actually within it as well. Let's have that on top as they're coming in there. So I could maybe put some of that information down the bottom here, like so. So that's nice as well. And as you drag them over, if I just do that again, as you drag them over onto the layout, they're selected. So you can actually use your arrow keys to just nudge them into exactly where you want them as well. It's another nice little tip. Okay. So I'll actually get rid of those. So we've got some fields on this, so that's great. Let's go and have a look at what that looks like. We just exit that layout and save it. So we've got some customer details in there, and we can browse, do some finds, right-click and find some of those records. And we found 3 customers that are in Oakland, which is great. So we've got a sort of a start of a system here. Let's actually just bring in quickly what we call a portal, so we can view those related works orders. So let's bring that in and see what that looks like. That's the tools at the top here in Portal. You just drag a box and let it go, showing works orders, the related works orders. I'm going to bring in a scrolly bar because there's probably going to be lots of works orders for each customer. And what information do you want to display? Well, we're going to bring in the date, description, hours, and the team leader who did the work. So there you go. So now we've got, for each customer, we've got their related works orders. So I could bring in maybe some labels for these, just so I can see what the actual data is. Date there. Description, and finally just the hour there. Okay, great. Okay, so we've got the start. So so we sort of go over how to add fields using the date picker, but let's have a look at the idea of themes and styles. We've got, if we go into layout mode again here, we can see that we're on a theme called Enlightened, and we can click this button here to change the theme if we want. So we've got several themes at the top here that we could change to. So maybe we could change to a bit of an obvious one there, so you can see the change details straight away. And the reason that theme is changing the look and feel is if we bring up the inspector window, we can see that we've got a styles tab in here. And every object in FileMaker has a certain number of default styles per theme. So every theme has a different look and feel in the styles. Even the buttons. Let's say if we just bring a quick button in here, you can see even the buttons have styles as well, so you can change the look feel of the objects. The great thing about styles is that they sort of force a bit of consistency into your sort of user interface, and you can also, when you change these styles, you can change them in the appearance tab to be slightly different. Once you've changed the style, this button at the top here goes red just to sort of highlight that something's changed, and you can save that as a new style. So you could say, blue button, and then you could save it into the theme, which will change it throughout your whole system, so on all of your layouts that you have in the system. So it's a great sort of time-saving little functionality. Great. Okay, so that was style and themes. So let's just quickly bring that back to my default. Okay, so let's have a look at creating another layout, another sort of nice way of viewing data. And I showed it in the last file, which was a list view. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's save that layout. Again, we're based on customers. Give it a name, customer list, maybe. Again, based on computers, but this time we're going to choose the list view option. And again, I want to drag my logo in. Put that up into the header part again. Great. And then I'll put a few fields into the body part. The body part is the one that's going to repeat to create that list. So again, let's use the field picker tool. So what kind of information do we want in here? Maybe the customer, maybe the city they're in, the state. It's probably all we need. We just need some information in there. Okay. Let's just bring that over a bit. So as you can see, one of my the options, the last options I had was that to have all the fields next to each other, going horizontally, and with the label on the top, which is perfect for this. But what I just need to do is just bring them in again. I put the field somewhere in the middle, and then just have the labels go slightly above into the header part, so they don't repeat. So they just become the header part. Let's see how that looks. Fantastic. Okay, so we've got a nice list of all our customers, and we can go through that. So what maybe would be nice is actually having a little button on the side so that we could go to see further details of that customer. So let's go and do that. A bit of scripting and a bit of user interface as well. So we'll create a button over here. Maybe we're just saying more ... Again, you've got some options on here where you can have just a button. There's several buttons in here that you can use straight away, or you can actually import your own buttons as well. But I'm going to have maybe the text to the left, and let's say a little arrow there. Maybe I don't need the ... if I've got the arrow. Great. Okay. So once I've got the sort of look feel of the button, I can then set an action to it. In this case, we just need a simple single-step script. And the one I want is go to layout. So I can search for it on the right-hand side here and bring it up. There you go. And a double-click brings it into the main window here, where you can decide what layout to go to. So in this case, we want to go to the customer details. You've got some nice little help down here on the bottom right. If you are new to FileMaker and you want to know what all these script steps mean, there's only 130 of them, but it gives you a nice little bit of help here. And clicking on that question mark also takes you to the fuller help file, so with some examples. So let's see how that looks. Exit the layout and save that, and then great. So we've got some nice, a nice sort of bit of navigation there, and maybe we could put a button on this label or even the logo. Sometimes quite nice. You can make any object that you drag in, any label, actually become a button by just right-clicking on it and selecting Button Setup. And we can do exactly the same thing, just a single script. Go to Layout. But this time we'll choose the list layout. Fantastic. So let's see how that looks, how that behaves. So now we can use the logo. You can see that the logo's not quite right, is it? Another top tip, if you hold down the Control key as you're dragging these objects, it keeps the aspect ratio for you, which I should have done. There you go, that's better. Okay, so we're back to our list view, and again we could go off and view another customer in more detail. So I think that looks pretty good. not bad at all. Let's see what else we can do. Let's apply a bit of maybe a bit of what we call conditional formatting to some of our objects in here. So let's have a look in the portal. Maybe it'd be good to highlight where, when the hours are say over 6, let's say, and turn then a different color. So let's see how you can do that. It's a nice functionality to really highlight a user where either there's danger or something that needs some action. So any of these objects or fields, you can right click again, and the option we're after now is this conditional formatting, and we can select that and add a conditional formatting to it. So you can choose a formula if it's a bit more complicated, but if it's just as simple as a value, you can just do that. So a value is, let's say, greater than, what do we say, greater than 6. Just turn the color maybe a bit red just so we can really see it. And let's see how that looks. So if you notice, we've got a little diamond icon here, just to highlight to us in layout mode that we've put some conditional formatting on that field. Okay, it's a bit subtle, but yeah, you can see that it's changing all of these figures where they're over 6. So that's a great tool, like I say, just to highlight something to the user when it needs to be there. So what else could we do? Well, let's go and look at maybe applying some formatting to some of these fields as well. So let's go over to the works order table. And again, I'm just going to drag a logo in, to be in layout mode, of course. Let's drag that logo in. Great. Give these a bit of room. Let's put them over something like that. Great. Okay, well, what would be nice, as we've got a date field here, is maybe to help the user out, instead of having to just type in the dates, maybe we'll get them a date picker would be a nice thing. So off to the inspector window again, and we're over to the data tab, and a few sort of lines down we've got control style. So this enables us to change the control style of the field, and in this case what we want is the drop down calendar. And I'm just going to show and include a icon to make it sort of very obvious that it is a drop-down calendar. So let's look at the functionality, see how that looks. Great, so that's really helped the user when they're adding a work order. They could go in and choose a date through the date picker. So that's one way of helping them out. Another is sort of drop down, especially when it's important for maybe reporting later on, as is this description field. It'd be nice so it's consistent. And people, when they put pest spraying in, it's always spelt the same way, and it'll be easy to report on that field in a later date. So let's have a look at how we'd help the users out in that way. So again, select your field so that it appears in the inspector window, and we're going to go and choose a drop-down list. Now, the drop-down list needs to be populated with values, so we call these the value list. So we'd have to go and create some. There's none there at the moment. Once we create these value lists, you can use them on as many fields as you want. Maybe popular ones, yes, no. You can use that drop-down or value list, sorry, on any field. So we're going to go and create a new one and give it a name. Job description. Now we could free type in here. We could say, pest control, and so on and so forth, and type in a value list that way. But as we've already got the list actually in the fields already, FileMaker could help us by bringing in that for us. So we would select use values from description. So let's see how that looks. We OK out of all of this, and again, I'm just going to tick the include arrow to show hide the list, and off into browse mode to see how that looks. And it takes so it's looked through all of that field, but it's only brought back the unique values that it's found. So that's brilliant. That's really going to help the users now to select the right one and to keep your data consistent. So, okay, let's have a look at some other things within the inspector window and see what else we can find. So one thing that people like to do is maybe display the data but then not allow the users to change that data until they want to. A couple of ways of doing that, but one that's quite nice is very easy to do straight in the inspector window. It's down here under the behavior. We can do that by just unselecting where you want it to be, the field to be allowed entry into. So by unselecting that browse mode, we can see that I'm frantically clicking on this field, but I can't actually get in to change the data on this layout. So it's a layout sort of specific function, but that's quite nice. It would just stop people accidentally changing the customer name. So that's one way of doing it. What else would be quite good? Maybe we could have things appear or not appear on a certain part of a certain bit of the data. So let's say what can we do here? Let's go off to the works order. So maybe we could say if the date field is empty, don't display any of these description or hours fields until it's full. So let's go and see how we can do that. So we could select these fields. We'll go into again into the inspector window under the behavior part, and the option here is hide object when is a calculation. So what we want to do is go into the calculation window, and we're looking at when the date is empty. So let's just start again, is empty, date. So let's see how that looks, so if that's correct. So I've just removed that date, and yeah, brilliant. So those fields have now been hidden until we enter the date, and then we can start entering the data of the description. So that's a really nice functionality. Okay. So there's a couple of other newish components that I just want to quickly show you how they look. One is the navigation button. So this enables us to build up a really nice navigation control using a button bar. So we can have these buttons vertically on top of each other or horizontally. Again, we can choose to have a nice little image within each one. So I could have, let's just select some of these. And also, of course, text, so we can have text within them as well. Select this option here. We have text to the left and right, and we can build that in. So maybe report, delete and add, whatever it may be. So we can put these navigation bars in the top. We can go to report, let's say, and another go to layout. But it's a really nice control when, for instance, you can add another bar at another date, and they automatically resize within the space that you've allowed it, within that sort of size. So maybe you want to make that a little bit bigger, but you can see how it's dynamically resizing. Really nice control. Really useful when you're building up a navigation bar. So that's one. The other one is a pop-up button. And I'll just show you that functionality quickly and then talk about it. Put some fields in there. So let's see, you have to go into browse mode to see this in action. So as the name suggests, when you hit this button, you get a nice little popover window where you can do some functionality, some stuff going in there. A good way of looking at this is going into the starter solutions and having a look at the asset one. This has a nice bit of functionality using a bit of sort of check-in, check-out. So we could create a new one and a new sort of, whatever it may be, computer, and checking out and checking in this object can now be done within the pop-up. You haven't got to go to maybe another layout to control that. So it's using the tool in this way is quite nice. There you go. Okay. Right. We're just going to go to some questions, do a quick poll, and see how much of that you've taken in. Okay, so I've been using it quite a lot, but what is the name of the little floating window where you can view and modify settings for any object? Okay, thank you for that. I'll just close that and share those results. So yeah, absolutely, it's the inspector window, and you get to it via the little eye up the top, or command, I. You can bring it up dynamically as well. So we've just been talking about it. But what do you think would be some of the uses for popover buttons? Okay, thank you for that. I'll just share those results. Yeah, I think all those are valid. Maybe showing a map is a bit hard because to be useful, a map usually has to be quite a big object, so you might want to go to another layout or just pop open a browser window. But displaying help is a great one. Yeah, and showing a sort of navigation bar is not a bad way of using them. And displaying additional information about a certain object or a certain record is a great way of using the tool. Yeah, absolutely. So it's almost the very first thing we did, but how can conditional formatting help users? Great, thank you for that. Share those results. Yeah, I think it's really about drawing attention for the user. You know, danger, the stock levels getting low, whatever it may be. How can field control styles improve data consistency? So control styles being the drop downs, the radio buttons, the date picker. Okay, thank you for that. I'll just share those results. Yeah, I can see why a lot of you click the validating users input. It's not strictly the term we use within systems design for validating. Validating something else when they put in the wrong date, and you can check for that and warn them. But you are kind of validating because you're forcing them, the second option, you're forcing them to only select from some values that you've sort of put into that drop down or control type. So yeah, it's more the second one. Okay, fantastic. The one thing I didn't go over when we were looking at themes actually is this question. So there were two sort of family of themes within the control where you pick your theme. And the ones that you want for mobile devices for iOS is touch themes, and actually some of our recommendations is even around when you're using WebDirect, when you're designing for the web, actually to use the touch themes are not a bad way of going. It just makes everything a little bit bigger, which is just looks better in a browser. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I'll just close that poll. I'll just go back to the presentation. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the best practice that you can build in. So our advice really is to build layouts for each device type. So if you go and have a look in the starter solutions, you can see that we've built for the desktop, the iOS platforms, iPhones are different, obviously, from iPads as well, and we've got the web layouts as well. So go and have a look at them, see how they look and why they're different. Even open them up on different devices is quite a good idea. Host one of these, either in Pro or in Server, and then open it up on your iPhone, see how they switch automatically via a sort of opening script, and see how they look is really good. And really, the reasons why we recommend it is that each device, not only obviously the screen sizes are different, but they have sort of different properties. For example, the FileMaker Go on the iPad and iPhone can scan. It can use the camera that's built into that device. So you may want to build a layout specifically for that functionality. You're going to build a layout for that device. So it's not just screen size, it's also what's going on in that particular environment. So this is obviously a real hard one, but every layout should have a purpose, and it seems obvious, right? But they shouldn't really have multiple purposes. So if you're building one layout, it should be there to support a user in one particular workflow, not 3 or 4 or 5. So it's better to create more layouts than it is to try and sort of cram a lot of functionality into one screen. That obviously just leads to cleaner design. So hierarchy of information is obviously very nice. It's our brains like it this way. So going sort of down through a series of instructions, the customer information, the customer order, let's say, different hierarchicals of information is a nice thing to have. When building for touch, you want to make those touch targets, they're called, so buttons or anything that somebody's going to be using their finger to activate on the iPad. You're going to want to make them a minimum of 44 points by 44 points, which is quite large. That becomes quite challenging when you're designing for the iPhone, but that comes from Apple's design guidelines, which are freely publicly available, and I'd recommend it if you are designing for that platform, you go and have a look at them. We've got our own white papers that go into quite a lot of details, but it's worth reading the Apple ones as well, of course. So again, when we're talking about iOS, it's great to just help people not having to go to the keyboard. There's just there's a couple of reasons why not, but the main one is that the keyboard springs up to half the screen, and you just lost half your screen real estate. So using drop downs, using control styles to help out the user as much as possible to avoid typing when not necessary. White space, it's always comes up whenever you read any design guides, but it's just to try and let they say let it breathe. Don't try and cram everything in again. Again, using more layouts is better than trying to get everything on one. So consistency, it's a hard thing to be consistent, but if you're always having an add button bottom right, don't suddenly on one layout put it bottom left. It's going to confuse users. Also, have a look at how other apps are built or other systems. Go and have a look at what they're doing. Don't reinvent the wheel. Maybe if nearly sort of 80% of the systems out there have the button bottom top right, follow that methodology. Your users won't have to have as much training. Okay. So hopefully you found that interesting. Let's just have a few poll questions around what we've just done there. So what should be the minimum size of a button or a touch target on an iOS device? Great. Yep, 44 points by 44 points. Okay. What way of inputting data should be avoided when possible in a touch situation? Okay, thank you for that. I'll just share those results. Yeah, absolutely. Typing with the on-screen keyboard. And actually in FileMaker 14, we introduced a script step, which is enable touch keyboard that has a sort of an on or off or toggle option to it. So you can actually, through a button or through a script trigger, automatically turn off the keyboard for the FileMaker Go for the iOS devices. So you can actually sort of force the keyboard not to pop up. Has its own challenges because of course you need to, there's some cases when maybe you need to pop it up, but yeah, that's there now, which is really good, especially when you're doing scanning with an external barcode scanning device, because that in effect is a keyboard, a Bluetooth keyboard. So scanning used to pop open the keyboard all the time, which is annoying, got in the way. It wasn't necessary because you were using a scanning device. So you can now just run that script and it won't do that, which is great, but still allow input into the field from the scanner. Okay. So let's just go through and give you a few more tips. These webinars are based off the FTS Basics pack that has a book and some Excel sheets and some files for you to work through the examples with. But there's also the FileMaker Training Series Advanced book. And it's around £12, not a great outlay. It's for a fantastic resource. It's got videos, a big PDF with examples and exercises for you to go through, and obviously some files as well to go through. Really well put together, and it's actually been written and checked over by some of our top developers in the world. Really nice way to learn, and I really recommend you have a look through it. There's lots of these little bonus tips as you go through the FileMaker Series Advanced, just to sort of pull out some tips. And one of those, if you are designing for WebDirect, is that it doesn't allow you to click through objects. So there's a lot of times where you could click through an object to enact another object. Sometimes you'd have a field on top of a drop down, and get people to click in through the drop down was one sort of way of relating data that used to happen. But you can't do that on WebDirect. It won't allow those. So there's a couple of new functionalities that have been built in the last couple of versions to help you get around there. So one is calculated values on a tab label, so the labels can be calculated to calculate anything that's in the database. So, for example, you can have the number of orders in the orders tab come up, so it could be dynamically driven. You can use objects with icons now in the buttons. That's a relatively new feature. So yeah, do use the icons. Don't drag an icon in like I was dragging in the logo. Put it over buttons, it won't work. Or you can actually group. You can actually lasso a load of objects, right-click them, and make them into a group. So you can do it that way as well. But I recommend you go and have a look at the Training Series Advanced. Okay, so our next webinar I lied isn't relationships. It's calculations. So a really comprehensive one that we look at scripting and calculations in the next one, Friday the 11th. So please join me there.